fresh best of 3. Top left of Moondance, we have Shopify Rebellion's Lambo. Bottom right, it is Team Liquid's Clem. Might be biased towards Clem in general, but really all the bias comes because of this. If he ever gets rid of it, I'll be very disappointed. So it's TvZ. It's an open cup. Clem also a little bit of that added magic bonus from the open cup. So him and here Marine almost always seemed... They seemed destined to meet each other in the finals. They both have had the same magic fairy being thing touch them and say, here, you're going to be really good at the open cups, but everything else, yeah, it's on you. I'm like, oh, fair enough, fair enough. Clem, though, has been performing a little bit better. He has been getting to the finals, I think, more commonly, more recently. Overall, here Marine absolutely still has the most wins of the Open Cup, over 50 at this point. I think it may be 51 or 52. Clem is not so far behind at something like 40 or 39 or something like that. He's definitely, at this rate, going to catch up. And I also believe in this particular case, he has a bit of the easier bracket. Now, that's not a slam on Lambo, which I definitely don't want to do. But it is more of a proper credit being given to MaxPax. MaxPax has firmly cemented himself as that third person in the semifinals. Again, the fourth is really the open spot. But MaxPax is there with Clem and here Marine very often, as long as he actually signs up. They all sign up, right? Still not as sure-proof, foolproof, whatever, as the others in terms of getting to those finals. If here Marine doesn't get to the semis, it's a really big deal. If MaxPax doesn't get there, it's surprising, but like, okay, it happens. But MaxPax is getting up there to be that kind of assured third person. So there's that. And there's also that his PVT in particular is looking really, really good. It's obviously something that he's had to practice against some of the greatest of his region multiple times thanks to this Open Cup. And I think he's finally found a place where he's comfortable with it, because a year or 2 years ago, it didn't look like he was particularly comfortable. Anyways, this means that I think Clem versus MaxPax is very realistic. And then we'll see if MaxPax can win against him again. Clem's TvZ, as we all know, one of his still strongest matchups, especially against the Europeans. Lambo is going to try and at least mix things up here on Moondance by going for a Roach Rush, which, I mean, is kind of common on this map. And Clem should be on the lookout for it. He has opted to go into a fast 3rd CC on location because he can. It's Moondance. But one weakness here would be against something a bit cheesy. So Roaches, Ling Roach, both, either. Oh, the Reaper didn't die. And the 2 Hellions were on the way out anyways. This is the way that you're supposed to ensure that you scout a Roach Rush. All right, the downside of sending your Reaper and a Hellion combo out in the field like this is that there's nothing here in case they actually were just having 20 Lings ready to jump into your natural. That is the downside. But the upside is that you're almost always guaranteed to get this scouting in enough time to mitigate the damage. And that's exactly what Clem is looking to do. He can't do very much to change his build order, but he did go up to a starport, and he has been able to add a tech lab, moving on to a Banshee, but it wasn't his first intention. By looks of things, it's still going to come out a bit late, and the damage will still be done. Trying to buy as much time as possible. Just a little bit of repair micro is actually really good. We're talking about seconds, if that bot, but doesn't lose the SCVs and still has that Banshee on the way, ready to go. Once it's out, it will end this. Just the time aspect that is concerning. Now it is out. It's going to start picking away at some of the already lower Roaches, thanks some of the grenades, thanks some of the Hellion shots. It's not much, but it does add up when they got as many shots as they did. And now the SCVs are going to be pulled into this to try and support as well. Ravager's killed, so no fear of Corrosive Bile, and we're going to stay at 8 SCVs killed. That's not a whole lot, actually. 3cc here for Clem is going to remake those very quickly. It's actually 3 orbitals already as well, so triple mules being clapped down as I speak. 15 worker lead for the Zerg player sounds amazing, but when you do contribute, add those 3 mules to the equation, it's not as big of a deal. It is still plenty of time for Lambo to do his thing, though, and that is the other benefit of doing a roach rush like this, is that you now know I've killed the Hellions. There's no map control for this guy. I got into the main base, so I see where along the build order this guy is. So in this case, very often it's going to be pretty much starting the starport production, right? You're still on your 1-1-1. So stim timings, you don't have to worry about it. Weird marine pushes, you don't have to worry about it. Weird tank pushes, you don't have to worry about it. None of that. So Lambo has a lot of time to do his thing, which is drone, and try and get creep spread, which is reduced because he was opening with a less than economical opener, a bit cheesy. It's not like he built a lot of queens with it, right? So he is building that queen count up to more of what we would expect, but there is going to be a noticeable lack of creep tumors. It's just that the creep tumors should be more effective because there are no Hellions, or very few Hellions, actually stopping them from being planted. So maybe if this was a more normal game, there'd be 2 or 3 creep tumors every single alleyway we're looking at. But 1 will do the trick if it stays alive. Ooh, Clem's at 47, wow. I thought he was in the low 40s. I guess that's changed. Last time I looked was maybe 6 or 7 weeks ago. So yeah, Clem is quickly gaining on Hero Marine's record. That's pretty cool. Banshee survives. Better left alone there, I think, for Clem, because it's still helpful when it comes to run-bys. Speaking kind of a run-bys. Very bold maneuver here. Only 3 Hellions, but still going to try and roast up some of these drones. Pretty much guarantees their death. Is it actually worth it? Well, how much are 3 Hellions going to help you in the long game? Yeah. So Lambo has had his time of peace. He got up to 78 drones, I guess, before the drones died. And has gotten a decent amount of creep spread out, but, you know, it's not the most impressive. And Clem is now ready to go. So did Lambo use the time as well as he could, should, would, so on and so forth, and now he's actually ready to go? I don't know. I don't know. This doesn't look like a whole lot, but Lambo also is only now just really building an army. He got the 85 drones before going for the unit production here. All the upgrades not yet finished either, so only thing on the upgrade list... Oh, no. Spoke too soon. Was the speed for the Zerglings. Oh my god, the Wood of Mine. Oh my god. But now Carapace is done. +1 melee is going to be done. Another Wood of Mine was hidden there. Got a pretty nice shot. And Clem is going to be sent packing. It should have only been initially scary, right? Like, Lambo, unless he was really silly and went up to 100 drones, would eventually be able to push away 16 Marines and a couple of Wood of Mines. But the ball is starting to roll now. And Clem usually doesn't really let go too easily, even when he is hardcore macroing. So he did get a very fast 4th base. It's already turning into a planetary, but this is the start, the double-double. Double drop the right, double drop the left, and then if he does do the gut punch through the middle, I think it'll be effective. So we're waiting on that. 2-2 starts up for the Zerg player. Clem actually was a little shy on the gas, but remembers his +2 armor. He was also, I mean, quick to the 2nd factory, sure. I don't know if quick's really the right word, but he got it around the same time the 4th base, and so is already over halfway done with drilling claws. You throw 10, 12 Wood of Mines to the middle of the map with whatever else you got. So in this case, 46 Marines right now. I think I do some serious damage. The only thing I'm noticing is that there's not many medevacs, so if this mid-push gets pounced on, there's not going to be much of a retreat. Hopefully it doesn't get pounced on, right? That's like kind of the thing about Wood of Mines, is that the Zerg players have to respect those. So Clem would just have to not be paying attention. And we just don't, we don't doubt Clem a lot of the time, right? He is paying attention. He is now primarily focusing. Oh my god. Oh my god. on the front push. Oh, those Widow Mines, pretty brutal. Almost got Clem as well, but that pickup was good enough. And yeah, now it goes back to the drops on the left and the right, of which Lambo still, you know, he can't really 100% take care of. Hydras can only do so much in terms of destroying those medevacs if they're being controlled as well as they are. And this would be a lot more, I think, about the distraction than it is necessarily about the actual drop doing tremendous amount of damage. 12 drones, 20 drones, 10 banelings, whatever. It's opening up more pathways for potential future engagements, kind of picking away here at Lambo, who is currently just struggling to kind of keep up. Like, there's no preemptiveness to Lambo's defense. That's a really weird way to put it. He's not engaging and winning and countering, right? So he is completely on his back heels, and that sometimes is fine. In this game, I don't think it's that fine. Without any form of aggression on Clem's side of the map, I do fear that the jaws are closing. And it doesn't feel like it right now, but then suddenly those teeth are going to sink in, and you're actually going to start taking huge losses. Lambo is already down 40 supply, and while he did manage to get up to a hive, he can't really make any effort to get anywhere else with it. And I was going to say he can't afford to get to anything else with it, but that's not true. He's been banking a lot of money, and that's where perhaps that distraction that I was talking about is coming in here. Not as many injects as you would hope, not as many hatcheries as you would hope, and now everything just getting more and more chaotic as I'm speaking. Drop into the natural, went into the main base, got a couple of drones there. Looks like this push on the left side is taken care of, but the Widow Mines aren't being destroyed, so that just means that another attack will come in soon enough and take advantage of that. So whenever a Zerg player is not picking off this many Widow Mines, given the opportunity, it really, really feels bad. Thankfully, Overseers finally finish up, and actually all of those Widow Mines will get cleaned up at the very, very last second. And Lambo is still, I mean, kind of struggling to make something happen. Pretty odd decision to go into Roach speed at this point. It looks very much like he was moving entirely away from Roaches, but I guess is thinking now with the larva problem, they would be most helpful, which actually kind of makes sense. But yeah, what a weird time to see Roach speed start up with 3-3 is also on the way. And Lambo is starting to make some moves here. Clem actually not consolidating enough. Had finally lost the drop to the right. He lost the drop in the main. Things got super chaotic for about 20 seconds, and then everything fell. Everything fell off, and Clem needed to kind of regroup. Also, part of the reason that his supply dipped was that he was transferring over into some more expensive, slower building units like Ghosts and Liberators. So that's also a bit of a natural slowing down that can happen as you transition. Even a guy as fast as Clem is still gonna have to slow down a little bit for it, and Lambo finally has his time to strike. I don't know how successful it really will be, though. I mean, keep in mind that while Lambo, yeah, finally, okay, you can take a breath here, you've maxed out, you've got your upgrades on the way, he still is without that much of a bank. So if he misjudges this attack, it could be brutal on the counter. And it looks like he might be misjudging. It's a lot of bio still left over, but the banelings are closing in. The planetary is going to help out here. The choke with the orbital also excellent. Some ghost snipes try to get thrown down, but don't actually really work out so well. And now I think it's more about the Sim City than anything else. The planetary taking a lot of those shots as well. And of course, the repair is going to be able to save that. Orbital at the very least gets destroyed. Center tower maybe as well. And Lambo actually got enough out of that to be okay. The problem was if he had lost more, right? He'd gone down 20-30 supply below Clem in an engagement off creep like that. Then it's a world of trouble. But, you know, they both kind of get out of that almost in an even sense. Around the same number of workers. Base count's different, but that's TvZ for you. It's still the same-ish number of workers. Similar timing on the upgrades. And whereas the Terran can't really initiate super fast, a place that they would want to be right now, the Zerg player is also missing a couple of things. And those couple of things, again, would be the huge bank, you know, most of it used up to not even barely remax, and then creep spread, which hasn't really been attended to from all of the aggression earlier on, and we are only at 3 queens. So if you go for creep, you're not going for injects, which apparently is still a problem for Lambo. Only 10 larvae, despite 7 hatcheries worth of supposed injects. Of course, that's not what's happening. So these are big problems right now. Lambo not able to remax, not able to steady himself, you know, more on the front lines or even in the midpoint of the map. Now is back once again completely on the defensive, but taking a decent start to this fight. Widowmine's not really getting the most beautiful connections. They were okay, though. They were still fine. They just were a little haphazard because Clem wasn't really behind the Widowmines. So Lambo is at least drawing the line a little bit right here while he's getting his larva back up. He definitely needs more queens. I'm actually a little surprised he hasn't made at least 2 more queens. You know, a total of 6. This is a little bit more heated than I was going to give it credit for. I did think Lambo was very close to being tipped over. He was kind of doing that comic thing where, you know, you're waving your hands around as you almost fall off the edge, but he regained his balance. Looks strong, is still ultimately, I think, on the edge, though. More so than Clem. Granted that the Widowmines actually get good connections, and Clem is paying attention to his army. But that's all on the execution of StarCraft, which is very difficult to do. Clem also has yet to expand again, which that is a big worry. If he had a base finishing over on this right side, I'd stick to my story here, but without that, and potentially losing this base because he didn't realize the army was coming in. Oh, that is problems. Clem is at least going to get a base in return, but it's not the same. Never is in this matchup. He's going to need more than that, and he is going to be looking for this base as well. Looks like a Liberator is already pushing off the drones from mining anyways. But now as he pushes into this base, he has to worry about where the Zerg army is and what it is comprised of. A couple of Widowmines apparently shot off on the left side, killed 12 drones, also saw the army respond to it, so Clem knew that he had time to kill the hatchery and even kill a couple of these creep tumors. One queen, that is actually kind of important. Will die. There we go. And yeah, the scan is going to reveal what the army actually looks like. So, right, you know, with the base being killed here, that is also Lambo, now a bit more in the gutter with the economy. But he got this base up kind of in the nick of time. Clem was quick to replace this base, but maybe not quick enough, and it's also mining out. He needs more than that. He's down 40 supply. Lambo's a bit of a bank as he moves in here. Some Widowmines going to try and get some good connections, but only targeting the Overseer so far. And the command center that is lifted will go ahead and distract those Hydras, but it'll also die for it. Something that Clem actually could not afford. And Lambo, especially with the attack through the middle on top of this planetary, has cemented himself firmly in the lead, if not just straight up going to win very soon. The fact that Clem couldn't get this base up at all in this game, you know, he was already kind of late to it, kind of picked up on that a bit late myself, and I was like, oh, that's actually not that great. And he never got to it, ever. Really was pointing to a very poor direction for Clem. This was bit written in the stars as soon as he didn't see the Zerg army coming through the middle, but you'd think killing 2 of their hatcheries would hopefully make up for it. It's just not usually the case. If this base was not a factor, maybe it is. Maybe Lambo is struggling to get maxed out, and as such, Clem has a slow return back into the game, but Lambo's not so much struggling to get maxed out as he is just kind of missing some of the lineups here. So the gas doesn't have the same amount of minerals, and the larva, again, is blocking him a little bit. But otherwise, he does have an economy. He does have a bit of a bank, and he's going to go, once again, engage into the Terran. Clem with some very weird micro. Don't usually see him making mistakes like that. Kind of got caught by surprise yet again, I suppose. And wanted to pull his army back here, but then army was caught here. I'm not sure. But it nonetheless resulted into an even worse game for our boy in blue. Who, of course, lost the planetary at the same time. He's lifting a natural. That's what he's lifting. His main went to the top. A couple of roaches going to stop that from mining, at least for a little while. And it looks like 19 drones did go down. I am not catching these Widowmine drops, man. Every time I think that all the action must be where my pointer is on, must be on Clem's defense, he has a Widowmine drop somewhere. So, I mean, that might be what's actually keeping him in the game at this point. Otherwise, Lambo is, oh my god, 68 drones, while they've both just been killing workers. Holy shit. But yeah, 70 drones. Maybe that's only 40 drones killed. And Lambo hasn't had to replace 30 drones. You know how much money that is? You know how much faster of a remax that is? Like, that's a pretty big deal. And Clem still remains in this game, despite everything going so poorly in the last 2 minutes. The army supply is still very similar in that at this point, I think with supplies like that, the game can still go either way. Lambo is still missing a bit of that safety bank that would really make him feel very confident in this game. And he is missing, again, creep spread. So, you know, he got the jump on Clem. Maybe Clem occasionally gets a jump on him. It's kind of the worry there. But it is, once again, Clem not realizing where some of the army is, because he can't even really afford a sensor tower. Orbital is lifted. That's the good news about orbitals, but SCVs are goners. Widowmine shot is decent, and the army of the Terran is returning home, but it's returning home into a sandwich. Oh no! Widowmines burrow up in the nick of time, but everything is surrounded. The liftoff is forced, and the planetary is a goner without that army standing firm in front of it. And so is Clem. Lambo going for the killing blow here is absolutely going to pick up game number 1. Yeah, GG. Oh. Woof. Wow, Lambo. Not falling under the pressure like I think a lot of other Zergs would, and a Lambo on a worse day would. Thank you, Manga Man, for the 28 months. In the top right of now Data City, we have Lambo. And bottom left, it is Clem. What a game, though. What a game. Don't have any updates about the other semifinal, because the bracket itself is very, very late to it. Roddy, I think, is casting that one, though. If you guys gonna go check it out, Max Pax versus Hero Marine. I pretty much felt confident, pretty much assumed that this was going to be Clem in the finals once again. But Lambo looked very strong game number 1. Basically, stronger than I gave him credit for at all times. I'd say it's a little bit of... I mean, the only way I can put it really is kind of an anti-Lambo bias, but that's not totally accurate. Like, obviously, I like Lambo, and I think he's a very good player. But I think whenever I get to see him, it's really, like, almost 50-50, I suppose, of whether it's, like, the toppest tier Lambo possible, or if it's good, but not his best Lambo. So, yeah, I was kind of thinking of that anytime I looked at the situation and said, okay, this is difficult for any Zerg player, and it's Lambo, who I don't know where he's at right now. I assume he's gonna kind of get toppled. So it was a little bit of like, you know, Lambo, where is he at right now? And still a little bit of just general Zerg situation. We've seen a lot of Zerg players get into similar positions against a Terran like that, and then, even though it looks like they're holding on, that creep spread problem really grows. And the inject problem ends up being just enough to kill them. Because there are definitely bad signs for Lambo in that game. But I got a little caught up in my own narrative. It took me a second to realize that Clem wasn't exactly speeding along to his extra bases and wasn't really controlling some of the weaker points of Lambo that would have maybe ended the game. Like if he had pushed that right side maybe a little bit more with the drop, if it got cleaned up when it did, combined with the left side, maybe that would have been enough to actually push Lambo off the edge. If Clem had not transferred over into Ghosts and still kept up that same pace of aggression, would it have been enough? But after everything is said and done, after a very action-packed TvZ, it's now, of course, obvious that Lambo is playing very well and that he was able to overcome those deficits and still choose the right things to do at the right time, which is a lot of what StarCraft is. So choosing how to defend, when to defend, and then exactly when to counterattack, even when it looked like Clem was going to be prepared for it. So this means could have a bit of an upset. Clem is going to go aggressive, going for a proxy starport against Zerg player. Not as common, but making sure that it's away from any potential overlords, which it should be. Thank you, Jim Davis MTG, for the huge raid. I'm gonna go ahead and assume that's Magic the Gathering. Any MTG players, StarCraft enjoyers? Everyone's StarCraft enjoyers. So the Hellions are gonna posture, pretend like they're doing their normal thing. Oh, the creep timers. Oh, the queens. And then they're gonna zip off to the right side eventually. Oh no, it's for a Liberator. Well, they're not gonna zip off anywhere then. So this Liberator is gonna appear much faster than what Lambo would expect. There is a wrench thrown into things, however, so Lambo actually gets an Overlord Scout into the main. Hit itself on the backside instead of anywhere else on the front, so it gets a very thorough scout. Sees both gases taken, sees a 1-1 setup, but suspiciously no starport. But there's no third CC either. It's double gas. So what is happening? Where's your starport? Well, as soon as he started thinking about that, the Liberator showed up and sieged. And Lambo, fortunately, a much quicker thinker than I am a talker, was able to identify and pull away basically in the nick of time. Although this, yeah, didn't pull away his drones. Hoped his queen to tank a lot of those shots. Now they do. It was 1 queen, 2 drones. Not exactly the starport success that Clem was looking for. I actually wonder if a Hellion drop would have been better, but we'll never know. Hellions were supposed to kind of team up with the Liberator harassment a little bit more than they did. All they managed to find is maybe 2 queens, which, you know, that's actually pretty good. No! Trans 2 saves it. So just the 1 queen thanks to the Liberator. The Lings are still saved. Well, that is a feisty number of Hellions. 8 instead of 6. What you're really looking for a lot of the time with those Lings is just messing up their shots. So I would still say that Lambo is very much good to go on the defense. Clem did start up a 3rd CC. He had walled off his natural pretty quickly with all the production he had been building. So he needed the supply depots in the first place. So this command center goes up here, but it's not because it's secret. And will eventually get planted. Clem only behind 11 workers. Really doesn't start things off too poorly for himself. But I think that Proxy Liberator was hoping for more like 6 drones. Hell, even 8 to 10. Especially when you combo it with Hellion pressure. So you're either distracting the Zerg or they respond to one thing well but not the other thing well. Well, in this case, Lambo responded to both things very well. And now we see that huge jump in the drone count. Excellent splits of his queens. I mean, if Lambo last game was able to recover his queen problem faster, it really makes you wonder how much faster he would have won it. It was such a tight, close game for a long time that if he had not been larva blocked or queen blocked for as long as he was, it was minutes. Minutes. He might have just won the game 10 minutes earlier, 5 minutes earlier at the very least. But that was one of the bigger problems for him. Now, the creep spread problem did pretty much stem from a roach opener that did enough, but not the most. Now that he's been able to play a more normal macro TvZ, he has the appropriate number of queens. The creep hopefully is pretty good. And then the injects, most importantly, are not a problem, hopefully. But that's a perfect world, right? There's still going to be a lot of distractions that Clem is going to set up here. Try and set Lambo a little bit off kilter. But already this drive up the middle is not doing particularly well. He's at least hoping to get more of this creep spread. But in typical TvZ fashion, the queens just place it down again. Didn't even get all the active creep timbers by the looks of things. And Lambo has been sitting comfy on 4 bases for quite some time, now going into a 5th. Starts up his transition up to a hive, and I think the pacing here is very impressive for Lambo. But I am, again, worried about this bank. Oh. This drop continuing not to do a whole lot. Was maybe hoping to distract his quadruple widow mines. Trying to hit the 3rd. Or is this the 4th? Yeah, whatever. Not gonna get it, and already under half health. Seems unlikely it'll do a lot in the future, but, you know, it only takes a second, I guess. And we have another drop also on the left side. I might be able to help it out. Got a little bit of a Ling posturing. I mean, maybe Banelings later on, maybe just to scout for that 4th command center. Seeing that it's not there yet is really a nice thing to see for Lambo. Almost 9 minutes and the command center is not yet floating. Okay, literally floating just before 9 minutes. So he's got that knowledge But most importantly, I would say Lambo has got the execution here. Again, the macro, maybe more minerals and gas could be spent, but he's also, I think, just very comfortable at the place that he is at. He's got enough army to deflect both drops. It's a matter of being in the right place at the right time, and then he can get up to the higher technology and perhaps more expensive units like lurkers or even ultras in this type of game. Last game, he really was on the brink, all right? Like, I'll admit to having some of that just Clem bias, Terran bias in a situation like last game. That's fine. But 100%, Lambo was on brink of defeat when he had a larva problem, a creep problem, and was being harassed every which way that you looked. It looked very dire for him. So he made some very tough decisions in the heat of the moment, what exactly to prioritize. Now it's not nearly as many dire decisions, risky decisions. Like, he can kind of play this out, I would expect, like he would want to if he envisioned this before entering into the game. Widowmine drop did not do a whole lot, was able to set off all the Widowmines, just didn't get anything. Clem is going to have 2-2 over to 1-1 as Lambo's upgrades are rather late. I mean, he opted for a +1 missile instead of +2 melee, fine, but his +2 Kerberos didn't start up particularly quickly at all. But here's where he went faster into those lurkers, right? So this is kind of what I was trying to get at, is that he doesn't have to decide, okay, I'm going to go for a huge swell of this unit as opposed to that unit. He can kind of go for both and still be okay for it. So 7 lurkers about to be on the field is already a pretty damn good number. They don't have any of their upgrades quite yet, but most importantly, range is going to finish very soon, and they've already positioned themselves maybe well enough to save this base. Looks like Clem wants to tap it in, but not going to be able to. Also focusing on the main base, we do have a drop going for the spawning pool. Adrenal glands will be denied. Lurker Den will live. And of course, you want to rebuild that spawning pool, but I'd say the upgrade here for the lurkers is more important, especially for time buying. If you can get to enough lurkers with all of their upgrades, that's going to buy you a lot of time. But Clem trying to go all boxer mode right here, just took on 5 lurkers with a seemingly too small army by just concaving and microing. And now Lambo is in a decent amount of trouble. He's not protecting any of the drones over on this 4th base. The main drop is still going to be threatening his main, and the Widowmines are once again getting fantastic shots, making up for the previous Widowmine drop for sure. Lambo, in 30 seconds here, took 20 drone kills, spawning pool kill, and he lost 5 out of 7 of his lurkers. I do know he's got 2 more somewhere, but I'm not even sure where they are. He's also using a lot of his bank that was being accrued during all of that to rebuild the lurkers. At the very least, we'll go ahead and again give him breathing room. You know, Ling Baneling, used correctly, fantastic set of units. But used incorrectly at the right moment, freaking kills you. Widowmine pops off and you're like, oh geez, I guess I'm dead. Lurkers, they're more durable. A little bit more of that, like, okay, I got enough lurkers, like, leave me the fuck alone. But that will change when ghosts are out. So Lambo might be given a moment to breathe now that he has 19 lurkers, holy shit. But this is where Clem being getting into those ghosts is really appropriate. Like I said for the last one, maybe going into ghosts as quick as he did wasn't actually all that helpful. Kind of felt like it lost him the pacing when he needed it the most. But now it obviously makes a lot of sense. And the more that he can keep up this pace while also reinforcing with ghosts, the more he wins out against someone who's completely dependent on lurkers. Right? It goes back to just someone pushing all of the aggression against someone who's only defending. And if you only defend, just feels like you're not playing all of StarCraft that can be played. Which is why it's really important that Lambo does do something with the lurkers. So I really like this attempt at hit squad over the left side. It's dangerous though. Ghosts are so freaking good if they are being paid attention to. That all of those lurkers just got sacrificed effectively because they really did not do a whole lot to the 3rd base. And the drop, I think, has apparently been cleaned up. Those are changelings. But the frontline aggression from Clem, it's feisty. If ghosts weren't on the play, lurkers are fantastic here. Lurkers push everything back, but with ghosts in play on the offensive, it's still back to a lot of the same problems that Lambo had in the first game, which he was able to overcome. But yeah, the lack of creep spread, perhaps even the lack of larva, yes indeed, absolutely. That's why he's banking almost 3,000 minerals. Love the Nidus Worm because I think it's just a good thing to have. No one can really deny that, but will it actually be able to play out in this game? +3 attack's been done for the Terran for a while, by the way, guys. And Clem is just not letting up Lambo's desperately trying to track the movements while also getting his own attack going. But this attack, again, is so dangerous. Just lurkers by themselves are basically as vulnerable as just ultras. We know how bad just ultras are. The Lings have got to come in here with the lurkers, which they do now, but after all those lurkers had already died, the trade there was not even. 11 ghosts dead, 31 lurkers. Holy crap, that's a lot of lurkers. And if that had just timed out a little bit better, which I think the timing was off because that was the army that was defending the army that was here. I think. It was kind of all over the place, but anyways, if the timing was a little bit better, that might have been enough. Because Clem thinks, oh, easy peasy steady shots, and then Lings touch his ghosts and they all cancel their shots. And then it's a real problem. It's a real shitty situation for the Terran. But the timing was not there for Lambo. He just got so many of his lurkers killed. And he's able to replace them, but that's not going to be the case forever. Eventually, he would run out of his 5 bases, and he just lost his 5th. His 6th only just now up. Will, I guess, be transferred to, but that's not a particularly safe feeling 6th. Nidus Swarms aplenty going down, but they're also being denied. Lurker harassment trying to get started as well. Now it's Lambo's turn to be a little bit of that multi-pronged aggressor. But so far, we have a better defense from the Terran side. It is just a defense, though. So this is where Lambo now gets to really act like a Clem, like a Terran player. Harasses, distracts, pulls the army back, then actually hits up the middle with something a little bit stronger. At least that's what he would want to do, but this Ling bailing force isn't exactly the most fearsome thing I've seen today. I'm actually wondering where the hell the rest of his supply is. It doesn't look like the entire Zerg army, really. 6 lurkers and maybe in the Nidus Storm waiting to pop up again. Yeah, it looks like he forgot to rebuild adrenal glands. He got the spawning pool, but not adrenal glands. Now remembering to get so. Also finishing up with +3 carapace. I mean, that's nice, but yeah, adrenal glands would be especially helpful, especially when you look at this situation here. Is he just not going to kill this planetary? Building armor is done. Only +2, no adrenal glands. Yeah, that planetary is not going to die. I mean, it would have if the Liberator wasn't slowly killing every single Ling, but... Oh my gosh, that's unfortunate. That is so unfortunate. That was a freebie. That was basically a freebie. Clem was not going to defend. Freebie, well... It was going to be cheap. And instead he didn't get it at all. Once again, a very, very good game, however. One where I still feel like Clem has got more control over this game and has it for a while, but all it takes is a good fight here. Ling's gonna wrap around on the Ghost, but nothing to back that up, and that's not good enough, so Lambo, this guy's taps out. GG. I'm really sad about that planetary. I'm sad on behalf of Lambo for that planetary. Sometimes Lambo does pretty well in ZVZs and ZVPs, and then he faces Clem or a Hero Marine in the semifinals, and it's okay. But kind of ends with a statement made. You know, Hero Marine or Clem was playing at 100%, Lambo was playing at 90. Well, today I feel like Lambo's also playing at 100, which we know can take on these two Terrans. Because it really does happen between the two Terrans. Although Clem is more well known for his TvZ. I think the same thing happens with Hero Marine and Lambo. But if Lambo can take down Clem here, playing like he is right now, then absolutely he can take down Hero Marine, if that is who he faces in the finals. And if it's not, if it's Max Packs, which I refreshed by the way, it is Max Packs, well then, this where I think... obviously, players still need to be having one of their better days to face one of the best Protosses. But I still feel like Lambo, little bit, not volatile, but just a little bit like, oh, on or off when it comes to this matchup. I feel like he's always pretty much on versus Protoss. I feel like that's where he's maybe more comfortable. Perhaps because it maybe is a little less mechanically demanding of a matchup. Or whatever other reason you want to come up with. But point is, Lambo might have one of his best runs in the Open Cups if he can defeat Clem in this game number 3. Bottom left, it is Lambo. Top right, it is Clem. Lambo's gonna opt for pool first. Might be a little scared of Clem doing a 2-Rax proxy, but... Clem's no Maru. And even Maru, I feel like, does it a lot less than he used to. But the good news is, for a Zerg player, it can also just transfer into its own little disruption. Its own little change. The Terran thinks, for the most part nowadays in the meta, right? Like, I don't have to worry about anything for a little while. Ha! 6-lings! Although I'd be kind of surprised if Lambo went 6-lings. Just 2. Yeah, that's more what I would expect. I'd like to remind everyone that that last game was observed by someone who only has about a quarter of her mouse pad actually available to her. By observing is not, you know, indie quality, but I will blame this cat. He's so cute though, he gets away with it. And presumably those 2 lings haven't done very much. Let's go ahead and look at them. They tried to avoid being scouted, but then the SCV scout came in, saw the late hatchery, which is all you need to see, and figured that there'd be some lings. So Lambo still wanted to go kill the SCV, still wanted to maybe not get found out by a Reaper in the middle of the map, just went and chased it, draws the lings home, easy peasy lemon squeezy. Clem should still give some credit to this being a Roach follow-up. While Lambo is not the cheesiest Zerg on the planet, he did opt for a Roach opener on Moondance, so it could happen. But it looks like he's not that concerned. Saw the 3rd hatch at the very least, so if it is something, it's a little bit later. And if it's a little bit later, then his Hellion squad can do the scouting. Lambo got a great scout into the main, where the Marine came out, saw that it was a 1-1-1 setup. Didn't quite see the second gas, but...
Enemy assaulting drones.
And won't be able to see the actual transfer of the starport, but might eventually dip back in. Currently, dealing with some Hellion pressure. Sometimes, Terran player does opt to go for the sacrifice of the 2 Hellions and a Reaper. Might not seem like it's bound to do a lot, but when the lings don't have speed, or there's not many lings to begin with, then it's not like the Hellions die very quickly, right? So they get multiple shots. Because these queens try their darndest. But at the end of the day, they're not particularly good at killing Hellions, not until they're in higher numbers anyway. And the Overlord does come back in to see that it is, in fact, transferring over into Banshees with Cloak. And just nowadays, I'd say it's pretty rare for people to cancel this stuff. And I don't think Clem would be the one to do it either. This is Gumiho, I think he'd be way more suspicious. Okay, where's the fusion core, buddy? Spores are on the way. Lairs on the way. Not actually any more queens. I'm assuming that more queens will be on the way soon. I don't really need more than 3 extra right now. And this is a change up. Very purposefully made in the main base as well. Roachwarren and 2 evolution chambers. The 2 evolution chambers are kind of funny to be, like, hidden. They could easily go on the front lines and you still would... You could think either melee or missile. But I think this might also lend the... to the deception of fast mutas, which isn't extremely popular, but it has felt like it's been trying to make a little bit of a comeback recently. And that's, of course, only if Clem even scouts the natural, which might not happen if the Banshees aren't bold. They're being pushed away on the outskirts. Good control from the Banshees. Thought about that, but for Lambo, I think it's also, again, has a lot to do with just hiding. He's going to go for a 1-1 Roach attack, of which Clem is just not going to expect. Because Clem's thinking primarily Ling Baneling, first of all. And then maybe, again, if he scouts the lack of frontline buildings, he might wonder if it's fast mutas. But, I mean, he hasn't even seen a Baneling, though, so it's more just like this guarantees that no scouting will be done. Assuming that Queens would respond to a Banshee in the main base. So that would be the only thing that really tripped Lambo up. If the Banshees came in the main and he just had his Queens completely out of position, well, then they might see this. But even then, they usually stick to the outside of the Spore Crawler, right? So they'd see pretty much this. So it's pretty clever. And it could be very deadly to Clem. Really important that he keeps his 2 Banshees alive. That literally might be what is saving him from certain death. I mean, it might still not be good enough, but the Roaches have been revealed. If he was planning on going directly into Widow Mines, he should change his mind into Roach tanks right now. We have an Overlord drop on the way. So he was already... I guess he literally moved his factory while he was attacking the Roaches. I'm sorry. I think of how I play, which is like, oh no, Roaches. Here we go, pick it up. No, he was super quick about it. Because he did build Widow Mines initially, as you would to really maximize your play against Ling Baneling. It is swapping over, but it's still a swap. It's still not a safety double tank opener. So keep that in mind. He also, I guess, he already had 1 tech lab, and then I guess he was able to build 2 more before he built reactors. Or he canceled them. I actually didn't catch that. So he's already building a good number of Marauders as well. So not as ideal as perhaps the Lambo was hoping for, but still pretty sketch. He brings the Queens forward with the Overlord drop and then spreads creep so that the Banshees aren't as effective. Now, they're still going to do a lot of damage, and hell, these Widow Mines even get a little bit done, but yeah, the Queens will stop the Banshees from literally just free-firing all damn day long. Third base might have to be forfeit, but I don't know, actually. That's a lot of bio saved. 2 Banshees, 1 Banshee, sorry, still adding little bits of damage. And a second tank can maybe go on that high ground, or in that corner right there, and maybe get a couple of shots off. To at least help save some of the SCV's lives. Actually, I think Clem very purposefully leaving him there for as long as possible. They're going to distract some of the Roaches, while the reinforcements also come in kind of haphazardly. The bio here is kicking ass. Clem is actually handling this so well that it almost looks silly. It almost is like, what the hell was Lambo's doing? Was this actually well thought out? That is one of the best holds I've seen. Just absolutely perfect. Kind of micro is not really the right word, because you think of micro, we think of like marine splits or focus firing something down, but that's kind of what it was. The army movement. There we go. It was kind of perfect army movement. You know, he engaged when he could. He stalled out as long as he could. He even microed his Banshees as long as he could. And then, you know, by the time that the Roaches were actually somewhere scary at the supply depots on the 3rd CC, Clem had actually retained and reinforced so many units that it just wasn't an issue anymore. If that was more of a pounce, if those Queens and Roaches all unloaded on this 3rd base and then Clem goes, oh shit, Clem's dead. But Clem played this out as well as you could expect. I'm still kind of bewildered by the fact that he already had 3 tech labs. I would have to go back and watch exactly when that happened. It's possible he was already planning on trying some mass bio style, but maybe the timing really did just work out on the double medevac drop scouting. So his hand was over like the reactor button and out of tech labs. Anyways, moving on. Clem is in a wonderful position. 3cc up and running without much pause at all. Lambo has been, you know, not at a terrible economy, but really not as much as you would want. And I think his kind of hope here is that Clem will misjudge in army engagements, which so far Clem has not done. The amount of units being retained is super impressive. You know, the medevacs are running out of energy, so always keep in mind that. There's both sides of this equation, right? But with so many medevacs, it feels like it only takes a few seconds before they're ready to help out again. And this is sustained damage, not burst, right? So every time you see this army be able to run away and re-heal, it's like a gut punch to the Zerg. They're like, oh shit, I didn't actually kill nearly as much as I wish I could have. A Ling surround, a couple of Banelings would actually change that so much. And the 4th base is done for Clem. Lambo's on 4 bases, as I was saying. It's not a, you know, bad economy per se, but 70 drones is not exactly fantastic for a Zerg going into the mid-game either. You're just talking about 80 to 85. And then the actual composition, right? It's been a thing for a while, but here I go again explaining it. Bio tank with upgrades gets so much better than Roach Ravager, provided you take decent engagements, which is still an issue. But it is supposed to get so much better that this is when the Roach player moves over into Banelings, moves over into Fungals, moves over into something different. The Lambo tries to take the best engagement that he possibly can, still has so much bio to contend with, and once again, losing some of those key Ravagers. As a Zerg player can retain the Ravager count, and then sometimes these like bad engagements aren't actually all that bad, but if they start losing the Ravagers in particular, it's quite bad. 15 Ravagers, it's kind of a nasty number. 95 Roaches is even nastier. And Clem should be feeling very confident about his defensive prowess, especially when 3-3 kicks in. I would say the only thing that is a little worrying is that his tank count's not that high. You know, it was only off 1 factory this entire time, so when those tanks died, it's hard to replace them. Oh, loses the Banshee that was great at scouting and helping. But you know, he's got planetary. He's got more reinforcements on the way, so he does feel comfortable to at least send 1 dropout. Which we all know that Roaches are notoriously difficult when it comes to handling drops and multi-pronged harassment. Lings will help out a little bit, but still kind of sketch. Lambo is looking for a brilliant engagement to change things up, but he's not quite gotten it yet. Each tank only getting really 1 shot right there. Kind of bodes well for the Zerg, who is once again maxed out. Just hammer the nail in, right? Brute force might just be able to do it. 3rd command center is also low, which I don't think Clem was picking up on until this very last second. But Corrosive Biles can't be spared for it exactly. If they're spared for the command center, they're not on top of the bio, stopping them from engaging on top of the Ravagers. Not enough reinforcements by looks of things for Lambo, as only Lings come in, get murdered almost instantaneously. And the command center will live, at least for now. Bio will also live for now. The sheer number of medevacs healing. Oh my god, we're at 12. So even though half the medevacs are out of energy, still 6 are healing. 410 SCVs fall in this engagement, but the command center lives. The 4th base still up and running, completely saturated, and the real timer is about to go off here. The 3-3 on the bio with 12 medevacs, healing it all up. Should be winning a lot of these engagements. Lambo has managed to squeeze every last drop out of his economy to get this many Ravagers once again. But 3-3 hits, and he's probably a goner. He's gonna go for another engagement, but the tank this time around gets a couple of shots more than last. Actually, 3 or 4 more shots. More reinforcements come in, so initially it looked doable, but with reinforcements, maybe not so much. Ravagers trying to buy that space, trying to buy the engagement with Corrosive Biles. Won't quite work out, as once again, Clem is forced to disengage. You do believe it is quite temporary. Lambo needs to actually be able to reinforce so much quicker than he is. It's awfully close. It's so much closer than it feels like it should be, just like that first game, but it's not fast enough. It's not enough, and now 3-3 is in fact done. Medevacs are out of juice, but the reinforcement line keeps on coming here. 3rd CC again, not gonna die, and Ravagers once again revealed with the lack of Roaches on the front lines, but it's still not enough for Clem to quite bust through, as he judges these at the very last second to pull away, save his army for another day, and hope that Lambo will run out of steam eventually. Which it feels like it's supposed to be coming, man. It's supposed to be coming at any second. Lambo's now only 62 drones, and a lot of his initial bases are out of mining, so oversaturation is going to be an issue soon. But Lambo is still coming, man. He's now bringing more creep spread. Seriously, some of these engagements have been that close. A couple extra little Overlord creep, and then maybe this would have been Lambo's game. 40 supply difference, 3-3 is done, but the medevacs are once again not as juicy as before. Roach, Ravager, and Queen once again. This is how it started. Perhaps this is how it ends, as Clem is once again forced to go back to his natural. Hold up there, but the tank will not live this time around. It goes down. Ravage on top of the supply depots. Marauders handling Lings right now, which is definitely not their ideal situation. And Clem is now down 50 supply as Lambo, the hammer here, might actually be pushing through to the finals to face Max Pax. And the reinforcements on the top side don't look very impressive. Clem is also kind of out of cash. He's not mining off the third. He's not mining off the natural. It is one base mining for the Terran, and it's not going to be enough. He's starting to miscontrol some of his units. The units on the high ground want to medevacs to heal every time they stim. The Ravagers are being revealed once again. It's a micro battle to the last, but it's one that maybe Lambo is going to win again by sheer numbers, by sheer force. Clem does not have enough. Oh my gosh. I can't believe Lambo has done it. 2 games, really. This one, definitely a game I called for Terran, especially when that 3-3 ended, but Clem perhaps a little overzealous on the bio. Some of these engagements perhaps would have been better, more defensively positioned. Maybe more tanks would have been better. I don't know. It looked like he was doing such a fabulous job of reading the room, reading the engagements, especially for the first, let's call it 5 engagements out of the 15 or 20 that we ended up getting. But at some point, it just was barely not enough. And that is it, man. That is it. Clem will lose the TvZ semifinals. And Lambo will go on to face Max Pax in the best of 5 finals. How about that?